So let me ask you something. Are you an anarchist? I know, that sounds like a loaded question, but hold on a second. Before you jump to any conclusions, let's dig into what the late anthropologist David Graeber actually meant by that. Because the answer, well, it might just surprise you. Yeah, when most of us hear the word anarchist, our brains immediately picture something like this: total chaos, right? Violence, destruction, a guy in a mask throwing a bomb. But what if I told you that's kind of just a stereotype? David Graeber argued that the whole idea has been completely misunderstood. For him, anarchism is really all about things like reason, self-organization, and just simple common decency. The core belief is pretty straightforward. People don't need to be threatened with a stick to act like reasonable human beings. So what's this whole philosophy built on then? Well, it really just comes down to two basic assumptions. First, that people, for the most part, are pretty reasonable and can organize themselves just fine without someone telling them what to do. And the second one, that power, well, power corrupts. Giving someone control over other people, that's almost always a recipe for disaster. Seems simple enough, doesn't it? But let's see how these two ideas show up in places you'd never expect, like in your own life. All right, let's try a little thought experiment. Picture this. You're at a super crowded bus stop. A line is starting to form. There are no cops around, no security guards, nobody to enforce any rules. What do? Do you wait your turn like everyone else? If you answered yes, and I'm guessing most of you did, then, surprise! According to Graeber, you just acted like an anarchist. Yep, you took part in creating a moment of spontaneous, decent social order, all without anyone threatening you or forcing you to. And that right there, that's a perfect real-world example of the most fundamental anarchist principle: self-organization. It's this core belief that we, as human beings, don't actually need the threat of punishment to come to a reasonable understanding with each other. That bus line, it's like a tiny functioning example of anarchy in action, happening every single day. Okay, so that's you as an individual. But what about when we get into groups? Think about any clubs or teams you're a part of, maybe a sports team, a book club, even a group of friends planning a trip. How do you guys make decisions? Is there one person who's the undisputed boss calling all the shots, or do you, talk it out and figure out what most people want to do? Well, if your group works by talking things through and reaching a general agreement, then, hey, congratulations again. You're already part of an organization that runs on anarchist principles. You're literally practicing this stuff in your day-to-day life. The fancy term for this is voluntary association, and all it really means is applying democratic principles to our ordinary lives. It's the idea that all groups should be based on the free consent of their members, not on some rigid, top-down, military-style chain of command. So every single time you listen to someone else's point of view in a meeting, or you compromise on a plan, you're living out this principle. All right, let's zoom out a bit and ask some bigger questions. Be honest with yourself for a second. How do you really feel about politicians? Do you think they're mostly selfless public servants? Or maybe a bit more like selfish swine? And what about the whole economic system? Does it feel, fair to you? Or kind of stupid and unfair? If you found yourself nodding along just now, well, you're tapping directly into the core anarchist critique of power. It's this powerful belief that power absolutely corrupts. And as Graeber so perfectly put it, the people who spend their entire lives chasing power are the very last people on Earth who should ever actually have it. Okay, here's a question that really cuts to the chase. Think about all those things we tell our children, all the basic lessons about how to be a good person. Do you really believe in them? I mean, just look at this disconnect. On one hand, we tell kids, share your toys, play fair, two wrongs don't make a right, cooperate. But then, we become adults, and the world we live in seems to reward the complete opposite, doesn't it? It rewards ruthless competition, being selfish, winning at all costs. It's a pretty glaring contradiction when you think about it. But here's the kicker, and this is Graeber's big point. What we tell our children isn't just some cute, naive fantasy that they're supposed to grow out of. He argues that it's actually the right way to live, that so-called childish morality, sharing, being kind, working together, that's the real foundation of pretty much every great thing human beings have ever achieved. Seriously, think about it. How did we get to the moon? How do scientific breakthroughs happen? It wasn't because every scientist was trying to sabotage the others, no. It's because of cooperation. It's mutual aid. Every thriving community, every great achievement, it's built on people helping each other out, not tearing each other down. So, you see where this is going, right? It all circles back to this simple idea. Every single time you really listen to someone, or you compromise, or you share something, or you just treat another human being with basic consideration and respect, you are, in a very real way, being an anarchist. It's not about chaos and bombs. It's about how we treat each other moment to moment. Okay, I can hear what you're thinking. Sure, this all sounds great for a bus line or my friend's book club, but you can't run an entire city this way, let alone a whole country. The scale is just way too big, right? That's the big question, isn't it? And Graeber would be the first to admit that is the single biggest challenge. Of course, it's complicated, but his answer is fundamentally optimistic. He basically asks, hey, if we can use our incredible human ingenuity to create global supply chains or coordinate massive scientific projects, why can't we apply that same brainpower to figuring out how to run things more democratically? The potential is absolutely there. We just have to, actually try. And this is a really important point to get. Anarchism isn't about some small group of people coming up with a perfect detailed blueprint for how society should work. In fact, that's the exact opposite of what it is. The last thing an anarchist wants is to impose some pre-packaged model on everybody else. The goal isn't to hand everyone a finished house. It's to give them the tools, the principles of justice, mutual aid, and freedom, and then trust them to design and build the kind of communities they want to live in. It's all about the process, not some final perfect product. So that leaves us with a pretty big challenge, doesn't it? What if we actually tried? I mean, really, truly tried to organize our world based on those same simple principles of fairness and decency we teach our own kids. Can you imagine what that would look like? Ultimately, this is the thought Graeber leaves us with. Anarchism isn't some crazy foreign idea you have to read about in a dusty book. He says it's really just a matter of having the courage to take the simple principles of common decency that we all live by and to follow them through to their logical conclusions. Makes you wonder, right? What kind of world could we build if we really had the courage to do that?